Some people are teachers, some construction workers, but me? I remove YouTube videos for a living. My job is to respond to flagged videos, review them to see if the content is appropriate enough for the website, and then make a decision on whether or not it's allowed to stay up. I probably delete close to 100 videos a day, mostly terrorist beheadings and stuff like that, things that would be too gruesome for the untrained eye. I, however, have built up an immunity to such videos, or so I thought. A couple days ago I was assigned to review multiple videos from one channel that had been flagged. The YouTube channel's name was simply Marbles, and their videos were less than ordinary. 4 of their videos had been flagged for harmful, dangerous acts. I reviewed the first one, which was titled Doggy. The video was only 10 seconds long. In the video, someone is filming a Cocker Spaniel, sleeping in a poorly lit room. There is no audio at all. They start to walk towards the dog, and then the video ends. I was quite curious why this had been flagged, and I figured I had missed something. I watched it probably about 20 more times and I never saw a thing that remotely resembled a dangerous act. The comments and dislikes had been disabled for the video, so I decided it could stay up on YouTube. The second video I watched was named 6 PM. This one was slightly longer, at around a minute in length. In the video, someone is walking around the woods. I assume the same cameraman from the doggy video, but I'm unsure. It is still light outside, so I could see everything perfectly. Orange leaves were scattered all over the ground, and the trees were bare. I could hear the crunch as the cameraman took each step, and the heavy, deep breathing. They only filmed what was in front of them. I was rushing to get some other work done, so I admit I skipped forward in the video about 20 seconds. What I saw next made my mouth drop. There was a skinny man in a surgical mask in front of the camera now. He had dark hair and eyes like knives. The camera seemed to be on the ground now. The surgical masked man had just been standing, looking down, almost like he was looking directly into my eyes. After about 10 seconds of staring, the video ends. I rewatched the video to see what I had missed when I skipped it. Not much was different. The cameraman is just walking along, and then suddenly the video cuts to that surgical man. I felt a little uneasy, but I decided this wasn't inappropriate for YouTube. It was allowed to stay. The next video was called Clouds. Another short one, at only 15 seconds long or so. The video opens up immediately to the cameraman in what appeared to be the same forest, but this time you can see his lower torso and legs in the shot. He was laying down, filming himself, bleeding. His shirt was damp and blood was coming out of his body like lava. He seemed to place another hand on the wound on his stomach, wincing as he made contact. The audio was very quiet, but I could hear him crying softly. I couldn't make out what it was, and I didn't want to watch the video again. I was already disturbed, so I took the video down. I already had plans to contact the authorities, but I was going to review the last video first. The video was titled Bad Day, smiley face. This was the longest video. I would say it's about 5 minutes from what I remember. The first 3 minutes are just a camera staring at a white wall in a dark room. I could hear some white noise in the background, maybe a fan or something. Other than that, silence. After 3 minutes, there's a jump cut, and the man in the surgical mask is standing in front of the wall, and he just stares. His stare was so dead, yet it seriously felt like he was staring into my soul. I felt a cold shiver go down my spine, and then after 1 minute of that, there was another jump cut, and what I saw next made me tear up. The man in the surgical mask was now covered in blood, and when I say covered, I mean literally every inch of his body was caked in blood. He seemed to be naked as well, only wearing that disgusting, horrifying surgical mask. His eyes were open wider now, like he was angry at me, and in his arms he was cradling the Cocker Spaniel, except it didn't have a head anymore, but he rocked it back and forth like a baby. I couldn't even finish the rest of the video. I closed out of it and took it down. I immediately contacted the police. To their credit, the police were eager to help. They said they would try to track this Marbles person down. They would just need some work from YouTube's end, namely an IP address. I thought it wouldn't be a problem. I went back to the Marbles YouTube channel to get his IP address, but the channel was gone. And I don't mean they deleted the channel, I mean it had completely vanished, like it had never existed. I still had the flagging reports, so I know I'm not crazy, but without the YouTube channel, those were completely useless now. I hadn't saved any of the videos either. Everything was just gone. I figured that he'd be caught eventually, and that this was an end to this crazy thing. I was dead wrong. Yesterday, I was assigned to review another video which had been flagged for spam. Pretty standard stuff, but I felt my life leave my body when I saw the channel name. It was Marbles again. I called for my boss. "What is it?" he asked. "It's the guy from before. It's Marbles," I told him. "My God," he said. "Play it." I clicked play. The video was exactly 13 seconds long, and it was just Marbles in a surgical mask, staring. He was in front of what appeared to be the same white wall, but the room was better lit now. After 13 seconds, the video had ended. Marbles hadn't really done anything. "Well, that was underwhelming," my boss said. He began to walk away from my desk. "Wait," I called out to him. "Let's get the cops on the line. We can get his IP." "Did you even watch the video? The guy didn't do a thing," my boss said. "What are they going to do? Arrest him for standing? Let's try to get some actual evidence before wasting police resources." I became angry. I knew that in time, Marbles would upload another incriminating video, and we would get him for that, but that wasn't good enough. I couldn't just allow him to strike again, hurt another innocent life, but only I knew what he was truly capable of. I went home last night and began drinking. I'm not much of a drinker, but I had to get my mind off this whole thing. I'll admit I got pretty wasted and I messed up. I went into YouTube and found the Marbles channel. I watched his entire video of staring again. This time I wasn't scared, I was furious. And then I noticed something. Unlike the video on his other channel, this one had the comments enabled. I left him a comment. I don't remember exactly what it said, but something along the lines of "fuck you, you evil fuck." Enough to get my point across. I believe I only left one, but it could have been more. I'm not really sure. I just blacked out after that. I woke up this morning and my head had been pounding ever since. I called in sick today. I just couldn't go in after last night. I went to my computer and began going through the internet routine, checking Facebook, email, Reddit, and then finally, YouTube. I had 10 notifications on YouTube. I felt a sick feeling in my stomach as I had remembered what I'd done last night, but I built up the courage to check them anyways. My comment on Marbles' video had received 10 replies. All of them were from him, and every single one of them simply said, "You're next." I immediately got up from the computer and ran to my phone. I dialed 911 and frantically yelled at the responder. I told her that I was being threatened on YouTube and I needed the police to come over right away. She asked who was threatening me, and I said it was the YouTube channel, named Marbles. But then as I kept talking to her, she said she couldn't find it. I went back to the computer and refreshed YouTube, and she was right. The channel had completely disappeared again. I told the 911 operator I worked at YouTube and may still be able to find the channel in our system. I decided I would call the police later on the non-emergency line. I put on some pants, grabbed my keys, and was headed out the door to get to the office. But as I opened my front door, I noticed something. A box on my doormat. It was from Amazon. I didn't want to spend any more time at home, so I grabbed the box and got into my car. I drove to my office and explained to my boss what was going on. We got into the YouTube system and looked for the channel, but just like before, there was no evidence of it actually existing. "What the hell?" my boss said. "But we watched the video yesterday." "I know." I slammed my fist on the channel. "Well, it's pretty weird," my boss said, "but nothing to freak out about. Probably just some troll messing with you. I mean, it's the internet. You don't think he's actually coming for you, do you? I thought about it, and I realized he was right. People make threats all the time online. I had no reason to be stressed. My YouTube channel didn't have anything personal on it, and there's no way he would find my docs. I was safe. After I let my boss know I was good, he headed back into his office. I was going to head back home and get a much-needed nap. I got into my car when I remembered I hadn't even opened the box I got this morning. I thought it was funny because I didn't even remember ordering anything. I ripped the box open, and to my surprise, a video camera was inside. Specifically, a Canon Vixia. I figured there had been some sort of mix-up, but then I noticed there was actually a note in the box as well. Film. Marbles. He knew where I lived and he had gotten me a camera? I went back inside to show my boss the note, but apparently he had already left for the day, so I sent him a picture of it instead through text. He just told me we'd talk about it tomorrow. I'm staying with my mom until then. I'm not sure what else to do. I'll keep you guys updated if anything happens. Let me begin by disclaiming that I am not schizophrenic. I don't have psychological issues of the sort. If you aren't going to believe me, don't read my story. For the past 6 months, I've really liked using guided spoken meditations to fall asleep. I always end up returning back to the same channels on YouTube. It works wonders for me. I fall asleep with my mind at peace, and my worries lifted. Then last night I decided to try a different video I had never seen before. The thumbnail caught my attention immediately. It was a picture of what seemed to be the stars, but the stars came together to form a smiling face with large circular hollow eyes made of the stars. The video was titled Guided Meditation, Immersive Astrological Journey, Night Man. So I clicked on the video, got nice and comfortable, and closed my eyes. It started like any other meditation I had heard before. If you have never done this before, basically a person doing a voiceover tells you to relax, breathe deeply, and clear your mind. Once that process is done, the visual part of the meditation begins. Last night I was pretty exhausted, so I ended up nodding off before the visual portion even began. The last thing I remember before falling asleep was breathing in to the count of number 4, holding, then exhaling to the count of 5. Some time later, I woke up in sleep paralysis. The headphones were still in my ears, and the meditation was still going. Except there was no voiceover. There was no soothing description for visualizations. There was a loud, and I mean a loud static sound, like the kind you hear on the radio. The most accurate thing I could find is this. Then there was this incessant whispering. It was so low and gravelly, it almost sounded like a growl. It said over and over, "He watches from above. He watches from above." I laid there paralyzed with an indescribable sense of dread watching over me. I wanted to move. I wanted my body to wake up. I wanted the goddamn video to stop. But it just kept going. The more the voice repeated, "He watches from above," I had this feeling like I knew something was watching me. This went on for what seemed like hours, but it could have only been 20 minutes, because the video was only 31 minutes long to begin with. When I finally broke out of the paralysis, I tilted my head up and saw it. A big black shape stretched out over my bed. Its neck was elongated to the point where its face hovered a foot from my own. Its eyes were abnormally large and round and white with massive pupils, like a cat when it's about to pounce or something. Its nose was like a goat's, just these 2 black, deep slits. I can't think about its mouth without feeling sick. It smelled like rotting carcasses and mold. The mouth was wide, and it seemed to be smiling. It had rows and rows of tiny, sharp teeth. If lamprey eels could smile, it would look exactly like what I saw. I stared at it, paralyzed with fear, for 5 fucking hours till the sun came up. Once the sun had started to come through my windows at around 6 a.m., it started crawling backward off my ceiling and seemed to ooze into the closet floor and disappeared. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I've done to myself. All I know is that I would rather collapse from sleep deprivation than ever willingly go to sleep again. About a month ago, I found myself searching through YouTube for some reviews and demonstrations of a dashboard camera I was thinking of getting. While what I found was quite helpful, many of the results were a bit repetitive and didn't introduce a ton of new information, aside from individual opinions of what worked well and what didn't. One recently uploaded, however, did stand out a bit from the rest and was simply called 2-Cam. A description hadn't been filled out, and the uploader's account was a random assortment of numbers, but I decided I had nothing to lose by giving it a look. The general scene was a young child, sitting behind a rectangular table with nothing behind him except a door. After sitting silently for almost a minute, the child gave a shy greeting and explained several details about what may have been the dashcam. I can't really be sure due to how unusually vague the child was being, including the description like, "It has a good screen, the body is strong, it'll last a long time." In fact, at no point in the video was a dashcam shown or even named. Before the recording came to an end, the child sat in silence once more for another minute or so. My first instinct was to believe that this was some kind of test video on a newly created account, which made me curious about the account itself. Maybe it would end up being widely popular somehow, or I'd be one of the first people to see it. Clicking on the profile itself revealed almost nothing had been filled out or added, except for 2 videos. Along with the one I just watched, there was a video added only minutes before. It was called 1-Cam. The preview photo was nearly identical, the same child sitting in the same place, so I wondered if there were multiple attempts at the same thing. Just as before, I allowed my curiosity to get the best of me and opened the second video. I could quickly tell this wasn't really a video at all, and instead was one frozen frame from the other clip. A soft ringing noise grew louder during the first few seconds, followed by a robotic voice reading several facts about, apparently, the child. Name: Rodney Wilson. Age: 9. Mother location: jail. Father location: deceased. Cause of death: beaten, burned. Several moments of silence later, the video ended. The horrible feeling that grew in my heart in response to what I'd heard was just indescribable. I told myself it was some cruel joke, but even if it was, finding humor in something so disturbing was completely uncalled for. There must have been a hint somewhere of what the purpose of the videos were, and while a bit unclear, one trait about the user's account caught my attention that I'd missed before. A number of people were already subscribed. Not many people, but more than seemed reasonable for an account made only hours earlier with random numbers as the name. I didn't question the subscribers too much, since they all looked pretty normal at the glance. The best way to find out what these videos were was to simply wait for more of them, so I myself subscribed, and left it at that for the time being. A good portion of the day passed before I logged back into YouTube to check on the account from earlier, though to my surprise, it had been deleted. No more subscription, no more videos, that was it. Or so I thought. The next morning I tried to shift my focus back to finding the dashcam information I'd originally been researching, and was met with a message on my YouTube account. It was as follows: "Hello. You have subscribed to Eyes Below the Sun Study. Link 1, Link 2. Please remember, no one has been harmed." Due to the sender of the message being from another account of mixed numbers, I knew this must have come from the person from the other profile, or at least someone connected to that person. This was the first time I considered that some kind of study was being conducted, but I had to wonder who the subjects were. the people in the videos, or the viewers. Whatever the case, I had told myself I'd wait for more videos, and here they were. Each one mimicked the general layout of the videos before. One was of another child, sitting in the same empty room, vaguely reviewing some kind of electronic. The title was 2. Radio. The other was against a screenshot of the first with a robotic voice reading information about the child. Name: Richard Brown. Age: 12. Mother location: deceased. Father location: unknown. Cause of death: strangulation. Some hours later, the account was once again deleted. For several days, there had seemed to be a clear formula at play. I'd be sent a message from a new account with 2 videos. One link would be of a child reviewing something, and the other would be of a screenshot of the review video and information about the reviewer. Then at the end of the day, the account would be taken down. While this was unusual, I was still waiting for a clear reason to think something was horribly wrong. After almost a week, a message I received renewed my feelings of concern. It was as follows. Hello. You have subscribed to Eyes Below the Sun Study. Link 1. Link 2. Please remember Jessica refused to participate in the study. The first link, called One Pendant, described some facts about a child as the previous videos did, but the robotic voice had been replaced with recordings of a woman. The child's name is Jessica. She's 7 years old, and both of her parents are at unknown locations. Due to her refusal to follow procedures, appropriate action will be taken. Odd. I clicked on the next link and saw the usual setup of a child, presumably Jessica, sitting at a table. She began describing a pendant in a vague manner, which was no surprise. However, in the middle of her description, she suddenly stopped and began to weep. A woman standing out of view calmly asked the girl to keep her eyes on the camera, but she continued to cry for a while before asking, "What did you do to my mom?" While the second person in the room wasn't visible, I could guess she began moving around since the video started shaking. Suddenly, the camera was pushed on the side, exposing a door to the bathroom. The woman then revealed herself by entering the now visible second room, taking a moment to shuffle through a cabinet before returning with a pair of scissors. I wasn't able to get a good look at the person, but a large wound on her face was impossible to miss. It started at the corner of her mouth and carved halfway to her ear. The video then ended. This must have set up some chain reaction, because the next 2 or 3 days had children who were all acting strange. They tried to describe whatever product they were assigned to, while fighting back tears and glancing at someone in the corner of the room out of view. Then I received another out-of-format message. Hello. You have see. Link 1. Do not be alarmed. There was only one link that day to something, called Eyes. But what could it be? I opened the video and was met with an empty room. Apparently the host hadn't been seated yet. Intense commotion could be heard outside, in the form of footsteps stomping down the hallways toward the door and muffled screaming, apparently from a kid. When the door opened, a man burst through holding a child in his arms. Tape had been put over the boy's mouth and his arms were tied behind his back. After kicking the door shut with his foot, the man practically threw the child onto the table with so much force the camera fell over. The scene had changed from the usual table to the corner of the room where the previous child had been uncomfortably glancing at. Lying on the floor naked was the girl from the pendant video, motionless, with wounds covering the entire body. Dried blood streamed down her eyelids and had savagely been cut or ripped off. While she'd clearly been in there several days, her eyes were slightly vibrated. The child was dying, but still alive. Suddenly, text on a black screen popped up with the words "Do not be alarmed" for several minutes before the video ended. This was the last straw. I wrote down the numbers of the account in the video before rushing out of my house to the local police station. I can only imagine how frantic I looked when I got there. Eventually, however, I managed to tell them what I had seen, and they requested I sit tight while they check out the video themselves right there. Maybe 15 minutes passed before the officers returned to me. Unfortunately, I didn't get there fast enough. The account and video had already been deleted. I didn't lose hope, however, because I knew I'd get another video the next day, so I promised to return when the proof of this nightmare arrived. That night, I didn't sleep well. I couldn't check the messages on my YouTube fast enough when I awoke, and what I found was the following. Hello. You have been unsubscribed to Eyes Below the Sun Study. Link 1. Please remember, no one was harmed. Upon clicking the link, I gasped at the title of the video. It was a 0, immediately followed by my YouTube username. With a terrible sinking feeling in my stomach, I sat back and watched the scene play. What followed was the regular room, with no one visible once again. However, someone standing behind the camera slowly walked into view and positioned herself exactly where the children had sat. I recognized the woman as the one from the one pendant video, the woman with the facial wound. She glared into the camera for a moment before saying, "I'm sorry you didn't understand what I set out to do, but it's not my responsibility to stop your imagination from forcing conclusions. I have made a point of telling all families bodily pain is an illusion. I'm not responsible for you understanding." The woman then walked back to the camera and shut it off, ending the video. This was the last I heard of anything relating to these series of events. I did make an attempt to return to the police that day with the video directed at me, but it had been deleted before I got to the station. I should have downloaded it. One of the officers I spoke to mentioned the possibility of bringing up the web pages involved in one of those police internet history searches for deleting or changed websites, and stated he'd look into it. 2 weeks have passed since that conversation, and I have yet heard back from them. The least I can do is share the story here, share it somewhere, so someone else knows what I experienced. I've gone back to YouTube and searched countless products to try to find another video that might be related, and have come up completely empty. I'm going to keep looking. I feel like I have an obligation to.